So let's move to our next session. I want to welcome our next speakers, Timur Dautpota. He's from 500 Startups and Program Manager, Entrepreneur in Residence and Program Manager. Also Vlad Аюкаев from EasyPay Indonesia, and Kani Raев from Appboxo. Please go on stage. Kani.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, guys, nice to see you. Nice to see you again.
Guys, do you hear me?
Yep, sure.
Cool, awesome.
So in nearest 40 minutes, we're gonna have a session called Pros and Cons of doing business in Southeast Asia, and I'll give you a role of moderator to Timur. Great.
Hey guys, my name is Timur Dautpota. As Mikhail mentioned, I'm at 500 Startups. My role is as an EIR and a program manager. So my job is pretty much to go into up-and-coming markets, find entrepreneurs that are really doing good and are kicking ass, help them with money and fund them so they can go out, build amazing products, give them the knowledge so they can create the next level of unicorns in the region. So they're changing economics and they're changing lives at the same time. A little bit about 500 Startups. So 500 Startups, as you know, has been around for a while. So 500 Startup is one of the most active global venture capitalist firm in the world. We write the most checks at the seed stage. We are on a mission to uplift people and economies across the world through entrepreneurship. And we have backed, at this point, more than 2,400 companies, 5,000 plus entrepreneurs, and around 75 countries around the continent. So with that said, I will let...
Hey, Timur, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, with that said, I will let you go ahead and introduce yourself and what you're working on. Can I?
Yeah, so Kenny, you might
Vlad, I think, yeah, you can start.
All right, okay. So yeah, hi everyone, I'm Vlad. So essentially, I'm the CEO of EasyPay Indonesia, which is a, you can say so, local Kiwi for our Russian public audience. So I've been in tech and for quite a while now. And yeah, hopefully today I can share as much experience as possible by running in this very contradictory market.
My name is Kani. I'm co-founder and CEO of Appboxo. Appboxo is a Singapore-based startup. We call ourselves super app platform. Basically, what we do, we enable any app to become a super app by integrating our software and enabling these apps to start offering multiple third-party services in their app. So some examples would be mobile wallets integrating e-commerce, travel, and lifestyle services. And we are also backed by 500 startups. So yeah, fellow fellow startup here. Cool, nice to meet you.
That's great. Vladdy, I think Vladdy was really humble. So let me tell you a little bit about more Vladdy. Vladdy is the CEO of EasyPay in Indonesia, and he's inspiring and changing the ecosystem, how people make payments and do banking in Indonesia alone. I think that's a really big problem he's tackling. So with that said, I will go ahead and start with the questions and answers. So Kanat, starting with you, we know that you are a serial entrepreneur who has built amazing businesses across the UK, and you have moved to Singapore. Could you like tell us about, share your entrepreneurial path and why you have chosen the new market you are in now with your new startup? Matt, can you hear us?
Yep. Sorry. So I'm originally from Kazakhstan. Moved to UK first and worked there. I launched a couple of projects there, and which were not very successful. And I moved to Singapore in 2019 and joined Enter Accelerator, and they were our first backers. So after that, yeah, like we came up with this idea, which we're doing right now, around the same time when we joined Hunter. Yeah, so far it was a very good experience. Moving from Europe to Asia was quite nice experience because we could see like all the differences in the way businesses run. So yeah, so yeah, that's like a brief story.
That's interesting because I think last year I also ran a program in Kazakhstan, and it was amazing to see like how much opportunities there, especially with young people who want to come in and build amazing companies and change the world. It was one of the most life-changing events for me, seeing how effective, the country is actually needing programs like this. So can you tell us a little about why, what didn't work in Kazakhstan and why it's working in, the SEA region?
Yeah, so we actually, when we came up with this idea, which we are doing right now, we're based in Europe, so in London, and when we were searching, like when we came up firstly with the technology which we are building, we thought that Southeast Asia is probably going to be the next place where these super apps are going to take off. It was around early 2019 when Grab announced that they're moving both of their apps into one app. So Grab Taxi and Grab Food would be merged into one. Gojek started announcing that they're moving into the super app trend and starting to add multiple services apart from food and taxi. Then just looking at design kind of thinking of all the different consumer apps in Southeast Asia, we thought that the super apps are going to be trending in the Southeast Asia market next. Just to give a bit of context for anyone who is not aware of what is a super app is basically an app which has like a lot of different services, and it's massive in China. So in China, WeChat and Alipay, they are the largest super apps. So both of them, they actually host more than 2 million services. Just to put that in comparison, Apple has more than 3 million apps right now, Apple App Store. And now in WeChat, you can actually access 2 million of services directly within one app. And last year, they actually announced that for 2020, the figures for gross transaction volume is around $240 billion in just one app. So we thought that China, like Southeast Asia, is kind of lagging China, I think, in terms of the tech development by like a couple of years. So we thought that super apps are going to come to Southeast Asia. And actually, we see right now more and more companies going in that direction. Even like Vlad, I was looking at your app, EasyPay. It also resembles all of these like super apps with a lot of these different buttons. So yeah, that's kind of the thinking, and that was the main reason we moved to Singapore, was that we thought Southeast Asia is going to be the right place for us to start.
I think that's a good example of what you mentioned, right? Like, I think really great entrepreneurs are made from riding the waves, and then you saw that trend happening in SEA region, and you wanted to ride the wave to become a big headshot and become a king in the region. With that said, let's move on to Vladdy. Vladdy, you started your career with tech roles before moving to the entrepreneurship route and advisory with experience across several markets, US, Finland, Russia, and Indonesia. Could you guide us through your story and how you have appeared to be an Indonesian market?
Sure. So yeah, I've been in tech and good products and startups since quite early on in my life. Actually, I think my current company title is my first real job, according to my mom. So, but I've been doing my startup for maybe 4 years, and at some point, I just realized that I'm a bad founder. So I can't focus on one thing. I get bored with ideas quite fast. And I don't really like solving conflicts within the team, which is quite common for startups. And, I just realized that I have those much needed traits of perseverance and high stamina. So, yeah, and then maybe about 3 years ago, I started to look around and attempt to find myself a safe haven, and I found one as a VC, as a micro VC. So, and I think bad founders make really cool VCs, and because you have many talents around, you always talk to cool entrepreneurs, and you hear a bunch of great ideas, and all that said, like you exactly know what they need, what their problems are, how painful a founder's life really is. And also a big part of VC job is mimic founder's job. So like fundraising, market research analysis, and so on. So yeah, and actually I found a soulmate who was just also interested in the VC market, and we went to fundraise and started our own micro VC and do something in Russia what Antler did actually in Singapore early on, I think. So, and while I was raising for my own fund, one of my potential limited partners, that is the guy who gives money into the venture fund, asked me to lead for a fixed amount of time his one of his investment company in Indonesia, and so that's EasyPay is his portfolio company, and yeah, that's how I landed here essentially. And just what Kenny rightly said, EasyPay is also working with those mom and dad shops, they're called warungs and tacos, and essentially we are resembling. We are a PPOB company, and that is a payment point over bank. So we provide some payment opportunities for those informal businesses like tacos and warungs in Indonesia. So, and yes, to some extent we are launching more products, and our end goal is to build a very humble super app. So.
Yeah, and I really agree with you. I think like I was on the same path as you, Vlad, is where, you know, I think good, like coming from the founder background, you know the struggles and you know the hardships of what like makes a company tick, and what's working and what's not working. And going back to the ethos, I think in today's time, there's only two ways to create tremendous amount of wealth, right? And this is my ethos. One is either you start a tech company or you start investing in tech companies. So that's the ethos I've been following since from high school. And I think you have a similar route as me. With that said, yeah, so with that said, you know, which pros and cons do you see on the market, right? So maybe considering your experience, you could also compare it with other markets worldwide.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, before I worked in the States, and then I worked in Finland and Russia, of course, and Indonesia is now a fourth market for me. And well, there are some very strong pros. The first is the population. It's a growing population. It's a country that gets 2 million new citizens every year. So, and none of the European country can compare to this, and maybe US to some extent. So, and of course, that's why there are prospects for startups, right? Also, since market is not only raising demographic-wise, it's also rising economically wise. So it's a rising income country. Maybe, I don't know, like 10 years ago, GDP was half of what it is today, right? So, and in next 5 to 7 years, I think it will double. So the economy is really growing. Right now, Indonesia is experiencing the first ever decline of GDP because of the COVID for like last 20, 21 years, I think. So also there is an affordable talent compared to Finland, right? For example, it's really cheap to hire people here. The taxes are low, essentially, especially if you're a micro business. Like if you're less than 500 million Indonesian rupiah per year, you just pay 0.5% of tax flat. So it's a low base country. Some tech just isn't there, or it's not of a great quality. So there's not a lot of opportunity. If you know how to build a secure tech, you can stand down really quickly. And one thing, I don't know which is a good thing to say these days, but being a Westerner is cool here. So because it's quite easy for you to open doors. Like local people are just interested in what you're doing. Like why did you come here? So it's both maybe easy to make partners because partners just want to meet you, and it's easy to make fundraising because venture capitalists are also interesting. Like what are the new ideas that you bring into the region? So yeah, I think those are the main advantages they have right now.
That's great. I think you definitely inspired me to look into this market as well, being a foreigner.
Yeah. So, but also those advantages come at expenses, and disadvantages are just the other side of pros. So it's affordable talent, but the quality of talent is really poor. So you really have to search for good people, and that takes a lot of time. And in the end, I think, if you compare an American developer or like a Finnish developer or a Russian developer, like to local, then yeah, the local one might be 2 times cheaper, but then he's going to be 2 times slower and 2 times less experience, essentially. So in the end, you pay the same or actually more. So because you also lose time, right? And time is very expensive. Also, it's as people righteously said before, it's a low income country. So, and for customers is just low, and sometimes context swap apps just for like I don't know, 10 cents or 20 cents. So, and I think another thing is also being a Westerner problem here. Like just because you're a differently looking guy, you meet trouble to other people. So people like very cautious about working with you, and yes, they want to learn about you, but then at the same time, they would think twice whether it's a good partnership for them. And I think the last but not the least is the immature institutions and some culture barriers. So this is
Right.
Indonesia is quite a fresh country. It just went through reformation maybe 10 or 15 years ago. So it's still developing its own institutions, and sometimes you cannot really rely on them.
That's interesting what you said. So given the Indonesian market, Laddie, like, let's take Korea, for example. Koreans are really good with design, as we all know. Philippines is known for really good at outsourcing market automation. What do you think Indonesia is known for when it comes to talent besides, the development side you already mentioned? But if there's one thing you could point about Indonesia, what type of talent would you see they were really good at?
Well, can you elaborate more on your question? You mean like what like? Can you repeat the question?
Right. So again, right. So if you go to Korea, right. So Koreans are really good at design, the Korean market. You can find really good designers. When it comes to UI and UX, you'll find great, amazing designers. When you're looking at the Philippines, you could do a lot of market automation, a lot of stuff when it comes to, that's a lot of grunt work. You can outsource that. If you're looking at Indonesia, what would you say is like, like the strong point of Indonesia besides developing?
I think Indonesians can make good managers. This culture, like if I'm not mistaken, like 30% of top CEOs in the United States are Indians, right? And Indonesia culture is close to Indian, and this is a culture where conflict is avoided by all means. So, and essentially, I think Indonesians can make good middle managers or good top managers because they always try to avoid conflicts. They know how to find, like a right approach to you. They know how to talk to people. They know how to be really nice, like not like westernized, but internally, meaning actually that they are trying to help you solve your troubles. So I think that's one of the cool skills, and that's what I've seen my employees and my colleagues here in Indonesia. Are there any like specific tech skills? I don't think so. Like there is not that many good colleges and good like technological history background in this country. Just so there are cool Indonesians who like educated in the States or like in Singapore that know what to do exactly in terms of tech. But I mean, I can't say that they're like, outstanding designers or programmers. So.
Okay, that's interesting to know. So bringing it back to you, Kanat, what are the markets you are currently working on, and how have you been expanding your business to each one? And which differences have you identified in these markets, if there are any?
Yeah, so we are right now operating pretty much in every Southeast Asian country. So we have partners in Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore. Also kind of speaking to partners in Indochina, so Vietnam, Thailand, but that one is actually I think like that one was hard to crack for us. And then also in Northern Asia, so Taiwan, Korea, Japan also was quite hard to crack. I think and also we have operations. We have partners in India as well, where we are right now kind of starting to wrap up our technology. So yeah, from the differences, I think the main what I liked about Southeast Asia was that at least during COVID, we could pretty much scale up our partnerships without traveling to each country, which obviously saved a lot of time and money. And we now have partners in each country. However, before I was traveling to KL and to Jakarta to kind of do some meetings there. So that I think was quite nice. So the fact that you can kind of operate from Singapore across the region. However, here there is one small point that we are enterprise kind of focused company. So we are not dealing with like small and medium businesses as such, which also makes us a bit different, because when we speak to these like large mobile wallets and the consumer apps, they typically have not like a more westernized, I would say, people at the top management and like middle management. So a lot of them, they went to like Western unis, and it's like quite easy to communicate because you have like same background. So which I have no idea about when you deal with like small and medium businesses or maybe even consumers. I wasn't exposed to that. Yeah, so that I think was I mean, in terms of enterprise, I think right now, as long as you know English, you can do partnerships across the region in the four countries: Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, and Singapore, quite easily.
Okay. So Laddie, it was interesting hearing about what you were saying, so going back to you, would you do anything differently if you had the chance to start EasyPay from scratch? It would be also useful for the audience to know what are the possible mistakes, they can make in the market, and what they should really look for to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking for the last 6 months, essentially. And I made some retrospective. And first of all, I know it sounds very general, but I would invest in people. I would actually get better people aboard, and like even a better janitor. So because when I just joined the company, I realized that we had some problems with almost every single department, and mostly those problems are people's problems. So sometimes people are just not skilled, maybe not trained enough. And the reason for this is that because my previous management just tried to do some cuts, and wow, this is Indonesia, it's some cheap flavor, so let's just hire some cheap people. Wow, we're saving so much money. So yeah, and the second thing that is connected to the first one, I think, is I would invest in a top-of-the-shelf headhunter. So if you come to a new country and you manage an international team, then it's very hard for you to hire people, because you are out of your network, you have no connections in this market, you don't know like what people's resumes mean, like what specific college education mean, right? What is a good or bad work experience in this country and this specific city. So I would get a top headhunter to my team. So also I think, and this is really important for people who are doing their first startup or expanding their first startup to Southeast Asia, I would spend a lot of time on controlling my investor expectations, because, well, Asia is just slow, especially Indonesia, Malaysia. The culture is a bit slow paced. So, and if you have like a really fast paced investor, which is the case for lots of Western investors and even the Russian investors, so then, yeah, you should really control their expectations. Things are not just going to go as fast as you think. So opening a bank account can take like a month. And this is very hard to communicate to investor. He'll be like, what, 1 month? How's that possible? Come on, you're just not doing what has to be done. No, I'm doing my best. but it is just 1 month. So I would also spend more time and money on building a better fraud protection. If you're in a fintech or in a business that deals with money, fraud is always going to be a case for you, and you have to deal with fraud, and you have to hire a special team and put some special regulations or tech in place to protect yourself. So also, I think I'll make influential friends early on. So in Asia, you need friends. You need friends. Those can be local VCs, can be opinion leaders, can be other startup founders, it can be banking people, right? Or simply saying it can be ex-police, ex-military, or security guys. But you have to do like get influential friends, because as I said before, if you get fraud or you get some, I don't know, employee misconduct. I got some employees who just stole money from my company and run away. Then you have to chase them, and you cannot always chase them by means of classy like law enforcement, because there is just no law enforcement. So you will have to you'll have to deal with friends and make your friends do you a favor, and you better got those friends that can make you a good favor.
Right.
So, and maybe the last thing, I would rely as much as possible on my own sales and my own team, because it's easy to do partnerships here, but then partners are slow. They're also not quite reliable. Sometimes they can say, sorry, pa, we just changed our mind. You got a better partner, like, and you lost already like 3 months of integration whatsoever.
So I definitely know what you're talking about. I've experienced this myself in terms of slow pace and like people promising you something and going back on their word. I experienced this personally myself. It's not the case when you're working in the Western regions. But the age-old saying sticks true, ladies and gentlemen, is that, you know, hire slow, fire fast. And if there's any problem, it's going to be people, product, or process, right? So if you can trace back to that, to anything, it's going to be one of those three things. Kind of, what about you, right? So anything you would do differently, and any suggestions for the audience on possible mistakes they can avoid for in this market?
Yeah, so I think the one thing which I haven't done, or I would want to do a bit earlier, was to find relevant mentors for the region faster. We had a couple of mentors or advisors, but I think some of the things that at least in our business, which is enterprise sales, is more relevant, is like how to sell into these big enterprises. So we only started it a bit like later during our journey. So I think that would be quite helpful to do like as early as possible, even before you maybe even build the product. Start finding people who can give you advice on how to sell to these big guys in the region, because it's slightly different compared to I'm sure compared to other places. That was I think one of the challenge kind of. So from the advice point of view, I think if you are planning to launch in Southeast Asia, like some of the problems that Vlad mentioned about like bank account and the team can be easily solved by incorporating in Singapore, because Singapore is very, very nice in terms of the anything related to government and bureaucracy. And also from the talent perspective, I think even compared to London, Singapore has super experienced talent here, talent base. Like pretty much in any industry, there is someone who used to work somewhere in US or in Europe, and they just want to, like, they are running away from living in a cold country, and they just want to live in a nice warm country, and they go to Singapore and are based here. So yeah, one advice, if you want to come and work here, Singapore is quite good. Obviously there are some like industries that you cannot have incorporation only in Singapore, such as fintech and any other like businesses where there is some regulation. But if you are doing something simple like a consumer app, consumer services, like general apps, yeah, just come to Singapore and do it here. I think it's quite useful. And in our case, we operate in Malaysia, Indonesia, and Philippines. There are all of these like government treaties which we are falling under, and yeah, so far we didn't have any problem.
Oh, that's great to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, we're running a little bit behind on time. I'm going to refer back to Diana and Mikhail. Is it okay if we go a little bit over, or should we start wrapping it up?
Hi, Timur. we do have 2 minutes, so we can actually grab 1 or 2 questions from the audience, if you don't mind. We do have the question about the cons in terms of legislation and licensing, and that's about the field of payment, digital bank licenses, and so on. So it's about fintech and licenses.
I can take the question.
Yeah, Vlad, go ahead.
So first, the real problem is that this legislation is very gray. Like whenever it comes to Indonesian law, it can be treated in both ends, to your favor and against you. So legislation is murky. Licensing is complex. There are a couple organizations that do licensing, and essentially Bank of Indonesia and then OJK, depending on what type of fintech you're doing. And you'll have to deal with them, and sometimes the process of getting a license can take 3 years, and that's normal. I've seen people actually that cannot get license for more than 4 years, which are qualified for license, obviously, but just cannot get them. They cannot push through. So as I said before, you'll need some friends and local people aboard to make this happen. Other way around, you just better not start doing it.
Okay, thank you. Timur, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't think like the whole recap is like, it's like, you know, people are the most important players in this, right? Get early on when it comes to hiring, making friends. And I'm currently in Korea and I'm facing the same thing these guys are facing. You know, you have to come in and make those connections, build in the right team. And it's all about people, and it's a people's business. So that's what it takes to be successful. That's what you got to do.
Michael, do we have a few more minutes, or do we have to switch to another session?
I see that all of our next speakers are online, so we can go to our next session. I want to thank everyone, Timur, Vlad, and Kani. Thank you so much for joining us.